specific like playlist that is music that I can ignore, that I put on while I'm doing math. I would advise that if you listen to music while doing math, it not have a whole lot of lyrics, and not be something that you like to sing along with. That will be very distracting for you. Just general notes about doing math. So with this being the compressed 7/8 class, we don't necessarily use some of the manipulatives that the regular math 7 class uses because, quite honestly, like just hopefully we don't need them, and they take a while to use. Certain things like would take a long time. So this references in 222 we use the integer tiles. Integer tiles are just pluses and minuses. Like, no joke, they are just plastic pluses and minuses. So you might have used them last year, but if we can get away without using them today, we're going to try to get away without using them. So in 56, it asks us to get a bag and pull them out and put them together and all this stuff. We're probably not going to do that. We're just going to have a conversation about it. And because what we talked about yesterday is pretty easy to think through. If you, let's say, pulled out a bunch of pluses and you end up with like 17 pluses, right? So you have a positive 17. And you pulled out 13 negatives. What do you actually have and why? Connor? How do we actually have 4? But why? Let's say we're trying to explain this idea to somebody. And, you have a lot of tiles, right? Like, on the table, you have a lot. You have 17 pluses, 13 negatives, but you're telling me I really just have 4? Mallory?
You can group some of the positives and negatives together.
Every time we can group a positive with a negative, it makes 0. Right? So when we talk about positive and negative numbers, what we're really doing is breaking things apart. We take the 17 and actually, and you may have never thought about this before, but this is really what we're doing. We take the 17 and we say, okay, this is really 4 plus 13. And then the negative 13. And the positive 13 and the negative 13 wipe each other out, which leaves us with just the 4 that we have over there. So if subtraction has never been explained to you in this manner, what we're really doing is just making a group of 0 and asking what do we still have left over. Right? So I'm hoping that we can actually get through this up pretty fast and have some time for homework. We had decent time for homework in the last class, so that works. So we're hoping. Simon? Yeah.
Like 17 of them. Flip over 13 and are still facing the original direction.
Yeah, one of the things, and I have these manipulators if you want to use them when you're doing your homework or whatever else. But exactly that same idea, Simon. I lost them now. Are those little chips that I have that are like yellow and red? So like red would normally mean negative in math, and whatever other color would just mean positive. So work with your team to try to bust through like A through H of just grouping positives and negatives, and have that idea in your head of making 0. Now, we relate that to what we talked about yesterday with good guys, bad guys. Essentially, we're saying, okay, what fight ends in, the destruction of a person, right? Good guy, bad guy. And, because they get wiped out and they end up at 0, and then how much power do we still have left on the good or the bad side? After our fight comes to an end, after we delete one of the people.
What's the titles for them?
Oh, composing integers. Still, just integers and rationals. So, you can just say, combining positives, negatives, or whatever. You don't need to write all that. You can honestly just put 2, 2, 3.
It's 258.
like a bad guy meets up with another bad guy and they're just hanging out together? Do they fight? No. They just like join forces, right? They make a team of bad guys. They like might go get tea or something. I don't know. Who said bad guys don't drink tea?
All bad guys drink tea. All bad guys are
So that's taking away a bad guy, right? Yeah, you gain positive because taking away a bad guy, it does the same thing as if we bring in another good guy.
Of course they have tea. Everyone knows that all bad guys are British.
You think we'll be done with this in like a minute?
Yeah.
I'm already done.
Are they all written down?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the answers.
Did you check with your team?
No.
Verify with your team. Don't just trust yourself. I don't even trust
I can't
myself.
trust no one.
Well, exactly. You can't trust anyone, not even yourself.
No, I can trust myself. I can't trust anyone.
It's a bad guy and a bad guy. They're hanging out.
Why not?
Yeah.
Wait, you did zero. Does that mean all the good guy and all the bad guy are gone? Or just
Yeah.
They killed each other.
Like, so imagine, I don't know superheroes enough, but imagine like really powerful good guy, really powerful bad guy, and they just like run head first at each other, and no one wins. They just kind of disappear. The -8 fights a +2, and the result there is -6. We'll just shout these out as class answers. A -5 hangs out with a -3. -8. A 2 encounters a -4. -2. A -7 meets up with a -7. A -14. All right, now these guys are pretty evenly matched. -4 and -3 -4 meets up with a +3. They get into a battle. -1, right? Now we got 3 guys, right? The fight's not really even when you bring an extra guy, but we got -4 on the bad guys. We got +8 for the good guys and -2 for the bad guys. So first, the bad guys get with each other, right? So how much bad force do we have here? -6. So think about that first. Then the fight starts, and what happens? We get a +2. The good guy wins. Now, something weird happens when they show up to the fight. All of a sudden, 2 of them disappear. Because what do we call opposite values? Not opposite, but instead of opposite values. Because they are opposites, Quinn. They are like terms, you're right, because they're both constants, but there's another name, like the reason that they just disappear all of a sudden. Connor? They do? Yeah, there's a special name for them. Additive inverses. So when numbers have opposite values or different signs, additive inverses, so all of a sudden they just disappear and +5 is left just kind of like, okay, no one to fight. But also the +3 disappeared, so he doesn't know what happened to him. And a -6 meets up with a +6.
Zero.
You get 0, the fight just ends. Nothing really happens. Any questions on any of those positive, negative combinations, making zeros, additive inverses, any of that? All right, we're going to keep running real fast. What was the next one that I wanted to do? Sorry, guys. 58. So, 59 real quick. Now we have a really powerful bad guy, like the boss at the end of the level.
Oh no. Oh.
Like, what's his name? Koopa? Bowser, yeah, of course. But, Koopa Chupa too. So, we have -200, real big bad guy, and in comes this up-and-coming superhero, 14. Now, hold up. Who can explain to me what happens here? Go for it.
So, they got big -200 Bowser, yeah. And there's little Mario 14. And so, basically, Bowser's a little more powerful.
Yeah.
A little more powerful. So, yeah, basically, Mario gets squished, I guess. And you're left with Bowser still having
Now hold on. Hang on to that for a second. Is Bowser, correct me if I'm wrong, is Bowser the guy that can shoot shells out?
No.
What can Bowser,
He shoots
okay, he shoots fireballs. Okay, so let's imagine that when Bowser shoots fireballs, like, he can't shoot fireballs forever, right? Because he's like putting energy into that. So let's think for a moment, when Bowser shoots a fireball, he actually like splits his power. So he just says like, oh, here's a little Mario over here, I'll just take him out with one fireball. What would the strength of a fireball need to be to just wipe out Mario? 14, right? So Bowser just shoots a negative 14 over to him. But then, how much is Bowser still left with? Negative 186. So when we make those additive inverses, Mario, boop, gone. And Bowser left with negative 186. So there's another way to visualize this in your head. We're going to break apart. So just like when the bad guys show up and there's multiple of them, they come together. Well, the bad guy can kind of break a little piece of him off, wipe out the good guy if he knows he's like way more powerful, and we're just left with the bad guy still hanging out. Any questions on this? Now we're going to next level this with partial values. With your team, try 60. I don't know why that stayed there. Try to break numbers apart to make additive inverses if possible. Try to break things apart if you can. I forgot that this was just a real general lesson. I love something, but I still can't not throw my own flavor into it. So like when they do see someone on the tightrope, I show a video slacklining and like spinning out. So my big thing, positives and negatives, bro, is just really challenging. There's not good guys, bad guys. They just lays. Yeah. I'm glad. I mean, anyone who leaves my room, they should learn something. So the other piece, like something that is actually work on with other people's that red and white border around it, that's actually screen capture. If you're recording in class, so like kids are on that all freak out, or you're sick or whatever else. So I always take the kids and never end this class. So as soon as that's done, I pay for the screencast-o-matic like subscription to like $15 for 3 years or something. I can give it a title really quick and it uploads to YouTube. Yeah, so actually, the webcam up there has the mic, and the kids already know about all this, so it's nothing new. So that's in the bottom of the screen. And then because the mic's on the camera, it relatively picks up most of the class pretty well. Had to do a little bit of level and stuff. Like had a mic on the two screens, like 2 monitors. No, so actually my smart is up on the TV. So what's really good about when you ink layer is as soon as I write on here, like guys, when we look at A, can I split up the bad guy to wipe out the good guy? Yeah, and how much will it take? 50 of it, so we're left with negative 50. So then you can capture, and if I write too much and go too quick, it's up on the screen then, and I can move on and erase all this and whatever else because that's my smart file. So when you capture it, it goes straight into the smart file. So then I can save that as a PDF, and like, parents or kids. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of times I'm working at Gizmos or whatever else, and like I just want to take a picture of it and get it in the notes. So just how we doing? Do we need more time? Or are we okay?
Yes, love more time.
No, what? I guess I should not ask 2 different questions. Do we need more time?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll hang out. The other thing I go back and forth on is like the ideas and how much I want the kids invested in the start of nothing. Yeah. Well, I'm still kind of torn. So with me about the CPM last year, it was very much like I'm just going to do CPM and roll with remembering. But I've always kind of been a fan of getting students as early as we can, just starting with a blank slate. How do I set up a problem on my own? Write the original thing in there. I like guided notes for the fact that it'll save some time. But there's also like less investment of like, oh, all of this is already on paper. I just need to like do a tiny bit of effort, just write the answer. But yeah, so a lot of encouragement to the kids. Like, so when you go back and try to like use your notes to help you, or highlight use your notes on the test or whatever else.
I got 166 for you.
We'll do some ideas for them. Or say just want to like absorb the class while they're in here. So it's like my stuff.
Yeah.
Just put the slides on a file or something like that. Or the IS. Yeah, so yeah, so with the training, so how are we doing, what we're talking about, I told them.
No, it's not. Oh, negative 50. Not 25.
I got another answer. You're fast.
It depends on the test and depends on how I write the test, how hard it is.
Okay.
For this chapter, when this is a different class, they don't actually have a test on Friday. The class I just had, I showed them the test. I said, here's your test. You called the same thing. Because especially with mastery, it's like, why should you keep this like behind some dark curtain? Here's the one that asks you to show them and make sure that you can prep yourself. All right, we got to move on. Who can help me? I could use cards. Let's use cards. Micah and B, what's going on? Yeah, sorry, I said your name first. So Micah, what's going on in B? Are we gonna? Sorry.
What I did was I just did the 30 and the 60.
Yeah, do the 30 and the 61st, and they're both bad guys. So I know I'm gonna get a negative 90. Okay, and then.
And then the 5 eighths minus 1/4, and I know 1/4 equals 2 eighths. So that leaves me with 3 eighths.
Now, I love what you said, except for one little thing. George?
So you're not subtracting them, you're adding them because they're both negative. So it's because it's a part of the number.
They're both bad guys, right? Even the fractions are both bad guys. So they're going to join forces, even though they're bad, they're going to join forces. Now, so what you said, absolutely 5 eighths, and then this is 2 eighths, but they team up and actually become 7 eighths. So negative 90 and 7 eighths. Now, if we had gotten an improper fraction there, we would, of course, had to add that value into the whole number. And C, Mallory, what's going on there? Do we have a fight, or are we joining forces? We're joining forces, right? So we know the answer is going to be a bigger bad guy. So then how can we do this without a calculator?
So I added 30 and 59 hundredths and 25 and 63 hundredths.
It's impressive. You're trying really hard. I don't want to try that hard. I'm going to take the Micah method and break my numbers apart to make life easier. 30 and 25 is way easier. Sorry, my brain is... I can't talk necessarily at the same time as writing. I goof things up. 30 and 25 makes 55, right? And then my negative, like decimals, off to the side, I'm thinking, okay, 63, 59, I get a 2, carry, yeah, 122, but this is really, there's a decimal right here, so a negative 1.22. I can put it all together, negative 56.22. Now you can just put the values together, that's totally fine, but I like breaking them apart and saying, here's my whole numbers, here's my partial numbers, and I can put them back together. Up to you, whatever's easiest for your brain. What's up? Okay, yeah, if that confuses you, then don't necessarily do that. D, this is the hard one. Lizzie, sorry, I stole your notes. I don't know if you've gotten a D. Can you help me with D? No? Braylon!
Yeah.
Yeah!
Yeah, I already know it.
What happens here?
It's like, you have to add those negative people and back into like
you ever played the video games
It's
where
59.
you're all like, think of Mortal Kombat, you know, two sides of the screen, and underneath it. If a bad guy pops in right over there, he's gonna quickly run around like join forces, right? So exactly what Braylon's saying. Add the bad guys first, negative 59. Put the good guys together
That's too much.
to
35.
35. Who's gonna win, good or bad?
Good.
Good. So you don't have to put a positive, but you can if you want.
Oh, I know what it is. It's 126, right?
No.
It
Not
is.
sure.
It is. It's
176.
I got a trick.
Oh,
I got a trick.
same thing. Oh wait, my 2 looks like
59's annoying, right? But it's almost 60. So if I think about 235 minus 60, take away the 35 to get me to 200, and then take away 25 gets me to 175, but I didn't actually take away 60. I only took away 59. So instead of 175, it's 176.
My bad, guys. My 2 looks like a 7.
You're all good. So a strategy for that, Braylon, that's why I started making my 7s with this little like thing there. And also some people put a line across the middle so they know it's a 7. If your 2s look a lot like your 7s, figure out a strategy to straighten that up. We're moving on, I think, to the next lesson. Yes, we are. Yes. Did you? Good. All right. So, Cecil, right, or our Slack.
Oh, not him again.
Now, last night, I did get on the Slack line. My buddy Randy came over, and I'm getting better. I'll bring it to school sometime, maybe. Mr. Shirk said he's worried you guys will hurt yourself on it, but maybe yeah. I'm not really that worried about you hurting yourself. I mean, you're a kid, it happens. So, now, I have about 2 different sizes of steps when I Slack line. I've got like my itty bitty, like I need to get my foot on here real quick. And I can sometimes get some longer, like stretched out, like I get my balance going, and I go probably like 2 or 3 feet. But if I'm doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, it would seem pretty redundant to say 2 feet plus 2 feet plus, I can't even speak today. It'd be kind of pointless to say 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. What do we do in math instead of like adding, continuing? Multiplication, right? Hopefully we know that because they're compressed class. So instead of saying 7 and 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 7, negative 5 and negative 5 and negative 5 and negative 5 and negative 5, right? That's redundant. That's annoying. So we multiply instead. So I keep thinking I posted over there. If we look at number 72, how do we rewrite this? Like I said, I don't want to get you time for your homework, but we have negative 3 times 5, right? Because there are 5 of them. So now I have a personal preference with this. I like to say quantity first, and then the distance I'm working with, or the length I'm working with, in a parenthesis, because we know that a number right against a parenthesis is multiplication. We don't need the dot if we have the parentheses. So, Chad, I miss Chad. Chad Dudash came to Phoenix a long time ago. Chad writes 2 times 3 like this. He was asked to make a visual representation. Does that work?
Yeah.
What else could he be representing? 3 times 2, right? Just a reminder about order of multiplication being like nothing. It doesn't matter. Order of multiplication doesn't do anything. So 2 times 3, 2 sets of 3, same thing as 3 times 2, but then maybe he would write 3 times 2 like this, potentially, but it doesn't matter. It's still the same thing. So that, if you're looking for the property name, is the commutative property. We're not even going to draw it out, but what would 5 times a negative 3 be? Negative 15, right? Because the only way that negatives can make positives, I know some of us know this, but some of us don't. And I was actually working with a high school kid last night, and he still was like unsure about this. In multiplication. And the reason I say that all broken up is your brain has to switch. Right? In addition, 2 bad guys made bigger bad guy. Right? But in multiplication, multiplication, two negatives push together and make a positive. Because the opposite of a negative is positive. And negative is opposite. Like they mean the same thing. They are the same thing. So when we just have one negative, our answer is going to be negative. So then, so for those OCD people in my class that care that my markers never line up, the tips of the markers get goofed up. My blue one has been used so much that it's like completely mashed down and like messed up. So that's why I keep using, because I get excited. So like that's like a sad, all pressed down little tip. So I don't really use it, and I just change colors using the thing. So it doesn't really matter what pen you pick up. So what's the difference between the expression in A and the expression in B? What's the difference between those expressions? Like, are they the same or not? Jesse says they're not the same. Why are they not the same, Jesse?
Because you're adding 5 and 3 instead of multiplying 2 and 3. In B, you're multiplying 2 and 3 and then adding 5, and in A, you're adding 5 and 3.
Here, we're saying this is like two sets, or whatever you want to think of a move of 3 and a move of 5. Which really means it's two sets of 8, which is 16. Here is two moves of 3 and then a move of 5, which is 6 plus 5, or 11. We could do this with decimals, but we probably don't need to. Let's be done. Let's do homework. I want to give you guys time to do practice, and I have chosen these practice problems because I think they're really worthwhile. So be careful. Every year I have kids who are like, oh, I started and then I was just doing every problem. So remember, it is only these problems, 62, 64, 66, then 79, 80, 81, 83. Sorry that there are 7 problems tonight. I normally try to keep it to 5 or 6, but I really like these problems. So I will put the problems up here. If you're like gonna go get a book or a computer, like I'll post them up